Sometime in the fading light of a cold November afternoon, Captain Maya Torres stood inside the abandoned lodge, breath trembling in the thin mountain air as the front door groaned shut behind her. There was no time to ease into the moment. The place felt alive with secrets, humming beneath her boots like a heartbeat buried under the rotting wooden floor. 7 months pregnant, exhausted, and one eviction notice away from homelessness, she had climbed through a rising storm to reach this forgotten peak. The lodge towered around her like a slumbering giant, broken windows, collapsed beams, decades of dust. But beneath the decay, something else lingered, a pull, a warning, a whisper from the past telling her that this was no simple inheritance. Her gloved hand drifted across the dusty reception counter, fingers brushing against an old brass room key as if touching a ghost. The baby shifted sharply beneath her ribs, almost sensing the tension woven into the timbered walls. And then the lawyer's voice echoed behind her, just a little too calm, just a little too rehearsed, as he handed her the sealed letter from the gray tuncle she barely remembered. Maya broke the wax, unfolded the trembling paper, and read the message that would ignite everything, a cryptic warning, a coded combination, and a truth buried under the mountain that powerful people had killed to protect. Her breath tightened. Her world tilted. And in that instant, as the wind howled through the broken windows, Maya understood only one thing with absolute clarity. Stepping into this lodge meant stepping into a war she never knew she'd inherited. The deeper Maya read, the more the world she thought she understood collapsed piece by piece. Her great-uncle's words were sharp, urgent, threaded with grief and the unmistakable discipline of a man burdened by classified truth. He spoke of NORAD, Cold War vaults, continuity of government protocols, programs Maya had only heard whispers of during her military years. But woven within the warnings lay a revelation far more personal. He had been watching her life unravel from afar, preparing for the day she would need what he'd spent decades guarding. She followed Whitmore down the decaying basement stairs, clutching her belly with one hand, clutching the letter with the other. Her boots sank into rot-soft boards, the air thick with mold, until she reached a rusted equipment room that should have held nothing but dust. Yet Maya's instincts, the same instincts that kept her alive in field hospitals while mortars shattered earth outside, noticed everything. The subtle line in the concrete, the unnatural panel beneath the shelving, the faint shift of air where there should have been none. Her pulse sharpened. When she pulled open that hidden panel and felt the breath of temperature-controlled air rising from below, she knew her uncle hadn't been paranoid, he had been hunted. And whatever he had guarded in secret for 30 years was still alive down there, waiting for her and only her. As the hydraulic lift revealed the steel stairway descending into darkness, Maya felt the mountain pull her downward like destiny tightening around her shoulders. The metal steps vibrated beneath her as she descended into the earth, Whitmore's flashlight trembling behind her. The air grew colder, drier, strangely clean, the air of something preserved, something built to last past catastrophe. At the bottom stood a reinforced steel door powered by a keypad glowing a soft, eerie blue. Maya pulled her father's dog tag from around her neck, fingers brushing the numbers etched into it for decades. The moment she entered the code, the mountain stirred. The door exhaled a long, mechanical breath before unlocking with a hiss, revealing a corridor alive with flickering emergency lights booting up after a lifetime of sleep. The underground facility stretched ahead, a labyrinth of sealed rooms and heavy doors, each humming faintly as systems awakened to her presence. One office appeared untouched since the 60s, papers still stacked neatly, a faded photograph of her great-uncle and aunt smiling in a time before tragedy. Then the old filing cabinets revealed the truth. An inventory list of gold bullion transferred secretly during the Cold War, part of a contingency reserve meant to protect the nation if the world collapsed. Hundreds of bars, then thousands, enough to shift global markets. Maya's knees weakened as she calculated the modern value. Hundreds of millions, well beyond anything she'd imagined. But the shock deepened when she found the reports. Her great-aunt's accidental death, the forced retirement of her uncle, the quiet burial of the project. They hadn't lost track of him, they had silenced him. And now the burden had shifted onto her shoulders. When the vault recognized her DNA and opened its massive door, Maya stepped into a chamber that looked like the heart of an empire carved from stone. Rows of towering met. Metal shelves gleamed under dim lights, each holding stacks of Federal Reserve gold bars stamped with an authority long forgotten. The air tasted ancient, metallic, heavy with the weight of history and betrayal. Whitmore whispered the number again, nearly $800 million at today's market value. But the awe lasted only a breath. Because as soon as they turned to leave, the vault's main door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous finality. The intercom crackled to life, and the voice that emerged was calm, educated, and eerily cold. He spoke of the project as if it still belonged to him, as if decades had not passed, as if murder were simply an administrative action. He admitted to killing Maya's great-aunt like it was a technicality. He dismissed her uncle's grief as inconvenience, and now he wanted silence from Maya, silence in exchange for her life and her daughter's. Air supply, 12 hours. Options, dwindling. But fear wasn't new to Maya. She had navigated surgeries under mortar fire, stabilized broken bodies in collapsing field tents. Now she drew on that same fire, that same survival instinct. The facility wasn't a tomb, it was a machine built to withstand nuclear winter. That meant redundancies, escape routes, backup systems. She shoved aside her panic, flipped through old maintenance logs, and found what the voice on the intercom never expected. An emergency evacuation tunnel carved through natural caverns. One way out, one last chance. The tunnel was brutal, narrow, steep, and slick with ancient condensation. Maya leaned against the jagged rock walls as she climbed, Whitmore supporting her elbow when she stumbled. At 7 months pregnant, the thin mountain air punished every inhale, every heartbeat. But she kept going because stopping meant dying, and her daughter kicked against her ribs as if urging her to keep moving. They navigated forks in the cavern using the blueprint's faded lines, inching toward freedom until Maya's foot slipped on a wet stone. Pain tore through her leg as she fell hard, ankle twisting beneath her. The world pulsed white with agony. She tried to stand, but the joint buckled instantly. Whitmore's face went gray as he caught her, insisting she rest, insisting they couldn't continue like this. She shoved the blueprint into his hands and told him the truth she'd been avoiding. He had to go without her. Someone had to reach the surface. Someone had to expose the conspiracy before the killers sealed the mountain for good. Her voice shook, but her conviction didn't. Tor's women didn't break. They didn't surrender. And her great-uncle had chosen Whitmore for a reason, so she wouldn't face this alone. With a final nod, he ran into the darkness, footsteps echoing like fading hope. Maya sat alone, cradling her belly, whispering to her daughter that they would endure this too. Minutes blurred into an ache of time. Then bootsteps echoed again, not Whitmore's, but heavier, faster, too synchronized. Maya grabbed a loose stone, prepared for a final stand. But the lights revealed 3 FBI agents closing in, credentials raised, voices steady. Whitmore had made it. Rescue had arrived. The climb to the surface felt like clawing toward rebirth. 2 agents carried Maya gently but urgently through the narrowing tunnel while Special Agent Rebecca Morrison walked beside her, recording every detail Maya could remember. When they emerged into the cold afternoon light, the world exploded with motion, emergency vehicles, flashing lights, medical teams swarming across the snow-covered clearing above the lodge. Maya was rushed onto a stretcher against her protests, the EMT reminding her that exhaustion and adrenaline hid dangers she couldn't ignore. At the hospital, the ultrasound confirmed her daughter was strong, fighting, determined, just like her mother. Then came the news that shook her all over again. Nearly $800 million officially documented, federal programs unintentionally corroborating her uncle's claims. The government wanted answers but feared revelations. Investigators traced the voice in the intercom to retired intelligence officers who had spent decades hiding the vault, eliminating loose ends, and waiting for the right moment to reclaim what they believed belonged to them. But this time, truth moved faster than their reach. Arrests followed. Statements were taken. Conspiracies unraveled. And through it all, Maya sat in her hospital bed staring at the Rockies, feeling something unfamiliar settle inside her. Possibility. The fortune under the mountain wasn't for indulgence or escape. It was purpose carved from sacrifice. And her daughter deserved a legacy stronger than fear. 6 months later, the mountain stood transformed. The rotting lodge was reborn not as a luxury resort, but as a refuge for those who served. Haven House. Timber beams restored, the great fireplace burning again, rooms converted into therapy centers and transitional. Housing. Veterans roamed the halls, some with quiet hope, others with the haunted silence she knew too well. Standing on the new porch with her sleeping daughter pressed against her chest, Maya felt the full weight of the journey that had brought her here. Reporters filled the driveway. Volunteers moved equipment inside. And from the back row of the ceremony, Maya spotted Agent Morrison, Gerald Whitmore, and several high-ranking officers who had come not for publicity, but to honor the truth her uncle died protecting. The final rulings had shocked the country. The gold belonged to the Torres estate as compensation for decades of unsanctioned guardianship. Overnight, Maya had become one of the wealthiest women in the nation, and she spent nearly all of it building programs for those forgotten by the system. They called it the Mountain Fortune. They called her the Cold War heiress. But Maya didn't care about titles. She cared about the soldiers who arrived broken, the families searching for stability, the people who deserved healing after sacrificing everything. And when a young infantry veteran approached her after the speech, thanking her for creating a place where coming home finally meant something, Maya felt tears warm her eyes. This was her uncle's legacy and now hers, hope carved from hidden gold. Years later, as Maya walked the halls of Congress advocating for veteran care reform, her daughter's small hand wrapped around her fingers, she carried the quiet power of everyone she had fought for. Haven House had grown into a national model, helping thousands rebuild their lives, proving that healing wasn't charity, it was duty. And whenever the weight of bureaucracy pressed too hard, Maya remembered that cold mountain vault, the hum of old machines waking under her hand, and the promise her great-uncle wrote in shaky ink. We protect what matters, no matter the cost. Now she stood as living proof of that legacy, a mother, a veteran, a guardian of those who had guarded the world. As the sun dipped behind the Capitol dome, Maya whispered a thank you to the memory of the man who trusted her with a secret powerful enough to rewrite destinies. And to those listening now, breathing in the rise and fall of this journey, she offered her final words like a hand extended through the dark. If this story moved you, if you felt every heartbeat, every climb, every moment of defiance, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support brings more stories to life, more voices to light. Now tell me, where are you listening from, and what time is it as you hear this story?